May I speak?
You have my permission.
Try to ascertain if that information is a potential threat to national security.
Well, I never knew I had Martians in my garden. And I never knew there were aliens on my roof.
May I have your attention?
I got shadow people, and they're living in my basement. Got a funny feeling.
We're all locked in now.
I was so blind before, I was so unaware. But now I swear I'm seeing Sasquatch over there.
I can't take back the fact that your dad is an actual monkey. I don't understand.
Do you believe that life from somewhere else came here, visited, observed?
My personal belief is that there is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone, whatever that means.
Hey guys, welcome to Dave Darren Show. We're going to have a great show today. I got this visiting guest on today, and we're going to talk a lot about UFOs. We're going to talk about his stuff that he's done. He used to do a TV and radio show, so we're going to talk to Jeff in a couple minutes. But what I want to do is I want to tell you guys what I'm going to be doing in the next couple months. I'm actually going to go to, there's a UFO festival that's coming up in Roswell, New Mexico. So I'm going to check that out. I think that's like July 5th, 6th, and 7th. And actually, I got invited to go out and see, what's the other thing I got invited to see? I got invited to Area 51 by my previous guest, so I'm going to go out to Area 51. Now, supposedly, when you go out to Area 51, you got to be like, you got to climb up some mountains or something like that. And I'm scared of heights, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do that. I'll tell you what, let's bring Jeff in right now because, Jeff, I hear some background noise, so I don't know if we can get the background noise off.
Well, I'm not too sure what that is. It's nothing here.
Okay, when you talk, it seems to go away, so maybe it's something that when you're not talking, your mic is expanding to pick up things. Maybe you've got some extraterrestrials checking out the show that you don't actually see. I'm not sure. So, Jeff, how's it going? You're in Phoenix as well, like me, right?
Right. Yes. I'm down here in Glendale.
Glendale.
Just west of Phoenix.
Oh, okay. So people that don't know Glendale, that's where the football stadium is in Glendale, right?
Right. Yeah, that big UFO stadium out there.
Yeah. Is it? It looks like a UFO, but I think it's supposed to look like what, a diamondback or something like that, a curled up snake, but instead it looks like a UFO, right?
Yeah. Yeah. During the Super Bowl, there's lights that go around it, different color lights, and it actually really looks like a UFO sitting out there in the desert with these lights going around it. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it looks like a UFO. Like, my best looking UFO was from Lost in Space with the spaceship that actually looked like a flying saucer. When I think of UFOs, I want to see flying saucers. I don't want to see the Starship Enterprise with the nacelles or whatever they're called. I want to see a flying saucer when I think of UFOs. That's what I think about.
And that's on the craft type situation, that's all fine and good. I have seen some things that could resemble a craft, but my discoveries here in Phoenix over the last 20 years, investigating the Phoenix Lights, investigating the petroglyphs that are carved around the mountains here in this valley. I think what we're dealing with is something a little bit different than technology and little green man and flying saucers. It's my opinion in studying these things and having at least over 800 sightings that we're dealing with another living being, if you will, a life form. They're like entities, if you will. The Native Americans call these things spirits. And, studying the petroglyphs out there, they're not talking about spaceships. They're not talking about crafts. They're talking about supernatural entities, if you will. Just as what we find in Mexico as far as the feathered serpent, Quetzalcoatl. We have many flying serpents carved on the mountains here in Phoenix, especially South Mountain. This mountain is a very holy mountain. I do tours up there. I've investigated the petroglyphs for the last 20 years up there, and I've seen a lot of sightings there above South Mountain, and it's a real sacred spot.
Wow.
And it's not technology, nuts and bolts. They're another creature. They're another living being. I first discovered this in 2005. At that time, there was no UFO Hunter show. There was no Ancient Aliens TV show. It was all just an idea. And I was just at the right place at the right time when the UFO Hunter show was doing their pilot. And they were here in Phoenix, Arizona. And so I did the pilot for the UFO Hunter show. And then later on, when the show aired, about 2-3 years later, that's when we actually came back out and we did do the show for the History Channel.
Wow.
Now, at that time, this was all new to them. Everyone's looking for spaceships. Everyone's looking for flying crafts, little gray men, and I was trying to tell them, hey, this is something different. Look at my videos. My videos has been analyzed here by Village Labs in Phoenix, Arizona. I've done a lot of news reports here. I've done a lot of cable shows. They always make sure that they verify what they're going to air first, before they show on television. So my stuff has been analyzed. They know it's real. They know it's legit. No CGI, no fake. This is real stuff. And I was trying to let them know, look at the videos, man. Do you see a spaceship in this? No, this is a flying snake. That's a flying snake that we're seeing that just came off South Mountain there. It's a flying serpent. Okay, it's Quetzalcoatl, And at that time, they were telling me, you know what, Jeff, you're filming some bizarre stuff. They said, the public is not ready for this. This was back in 2005, 2006, 2007, And the UFO community was not ready for my discoveries yet. They weren't ready for actually what the petroglyphs are explaining, showing up there on the mountain.
Is that because the serpents and things like that are a little more scary than UFOs with the flying saucers? Because you're starting to bring, when we think of flying saucers and we think of the aliens on those spacecrafts, usually we think of them as kind of unfrightening, the little gray men or the little green men. They're not that scary. But when you're talking about flying serpents or dragons, that kind of brings a little bit more fear, because when we think of dragons, we think of huge things with flames shooting out of their mouth. So maybe that's why, because we wanted a little more tame being where we thought, well, at least they're human looking, or they've got the arms, the legs. They're somewhat closer to humans. So maybe that's why they're more scared of that initial concept. Well, not a concept, what you saw, right?
Right, absolutely. I've been watching the mountain and the skies here above Phoenix, and I'm telling you, it's not a craft. These are living entities. These are living beings.
But how do
I
they?
think this is one of the reasons why no one is really talking about this, especially some of the Native Americans who actually do understand what's going on here in the Valley of the Sun. This is like a type of taboo. We are not meant to know about this. And this is the reason why the government isn't talking about this. And yes, they are monitoring what's going on out here. I lived by South Mountain for 2.5 years. I watched these things come and go from South Mountain. And I also watched the black helicopters hanging around that mountain. And I've also watched the white airplanes hanging around this mountain, observing what is going on. Now, in 2004, I went out to go investigate the Phoenix Lights, and I moved to Mesa.
First of all, where is the Phoenix Lights? Where's that located? Where people that live in Phoenix, maybe they don't know where the sighting area of Phoenix Lights is? It is a certain spot, or does it randomly move? Let's start to get to some factual things here. Where is Phoenix Lights located?
Well, there's a lot of disinformation going on within the last, since 1997, 98, and especially beginning in 2004, when this, when they really started to get, I guess you could say, popular. There's a lot of misinformation. Now, a lot of people claim that a craft went over the city of Phoenix.
Right.
But yet, in my investigations, I don't see any evidence of this. Okay, there's not one point of evidence to hold this true. Now, it could be possible, don't get me wrong, but I have failed to see any proof of this. But what we do see, what the evidence does show, is lights on the west side of Phoenix. Now, we have South Mountain on the south of us, and then to the southwest, we have the Estrella Mountains, which is Spanish for Star Mountain. Now, these lights did a chain. They did a chain between the Estrella and South Mountain. They kind of arced, okay, if you will. And that's why people saying, oh, it's a V-shaped craft. No, these lights went in a pattern. They went between the Estrella Mountain and South Mountain, and they arced, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of people, because this is all new to them, and because, you know, when we think aliens, things like this, we're thinking flying saucers, we're thinking spaceships. So they're automatically assuming that this is a craft. Hell, when I went into this, I was expecting to see crafts also. Until I studied them, I saw them for myself. I saw what they looked like in the daytime. I saw what they looked like at nighttime, and that's when I came to the conclusion. And and I studied the petroglyphs up here, and I came to the conclusion: look, this is not a craft. These are entities. These are living creatures. Okay, and so when you see 5 lights out there, you're not looking at one big solid object. You're looking at 5 entities. Each light is a being. I've been saying this ever since the get-go in 2005 when I first discovered this. You know, I don't see any evidence. Matter of fact, as long as I've been skywatching here in Phoenix, I've yet to see a spaceship. I've yet to see a craft. What I'm seeing is living beings in the sky, living creatures,
so now,
living entities.
Okay, now how did these entities come to planet Earth? Were they here a long time ago before humanity, or how did these beings come here? And are there multiple types of these beings? I guess there are. You mentioned that there's a serpent, and then there's the ones that are the lights. So first of all, the first question for you is, how did they get here?
Well, let's go back into history. So apparently, now the Hohokam Indians were the first Native Americans who settled here in Phoenix, Arizona. They were masters of the canal systems. Matter of fact, the city of Phoenix to this day still uses some of the canal systems from the Hohokam, from the people that built in first in this valley.
Uh-huh.
Now, the Hohokam is a Pima name for the people who went missing, the people who got taken away,
hold
the
on,
people
caller.
who were gone.
Hold on, caller. Go ahead. We have a caller, but let's finish up your thought, then we'll bring the caller on. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So the Pimas, the Pima Indians, the Pima tribe, the To'oda Odom, consider themselves ancestors to the Hohokam. And so the Hohokam were masters here for 1,000 years. They lived here for 1,000 years, and yet they simply vanished. They up and disappeared. Okay, so with no trace of them. Now the archaeologist wants us to believe, well, it simply got hot here and they migrated somewhere else. But yet we cannot find any trace of where they went. But when we look at the oral traditions, when we look at the petroglyphs on the mountains of what happened to these people, and when you listen to the so-called myths, if you will, they will say that these things, that these Phoenix lights, these flying serpents, these creatures in the sky took these people away and carried them off into the sky. Okay. Now, when the Hohokams first got here, they didn't know how to live here in the desert. So they say that the lizard people came up out of the sand world. They came up out of South Mountain. They came up out of the mountains here around the valley. And they taught the people here how to live, how to survive. They taught them the secret knowledge. In return, they worshiped these things as gods. Now, there was sacrifice going on here. There's a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about, tonight that the archaeologists failed to talk about, but yet I have proven it, not only in my book, but in discovering all the things that the archaeologist is not talking about with these mountains here. And the tombs, he doesn't talk about the tombs that was here. He doesn't talk about the Mayans that were here. Okay, there's a lot of cover-up that's going on here and has been covered up for the last 80 years, all right? Now, when I first discovered this, all I had was my claims. Look, this looks like a tomb, okay? This looks like, they're looking up at a flying snake. This looks like an entity. This looks something different. Until I started investigating the true history of Phoenix, and it took me a year later, and I actually found the documents. I found the files in the Phoenix department, in the Phoenix library, on the 4th floor in the government department, that talks about South Mountain, that talks about the true legends of Phoenix, Arizona, and it talks about the first park ranger, Charles Holbrook, who was the first ranger here, and he knew. The Indians told him, look, there's tombs up there. The Mayans were here. The Hohokams, there was sacrifice and worship that was going on here. The Hohokams is not a peace-loving race. There was a lot of crazy crap that was going on here because of these Phoenix lights. All right. Now he did tours. I do tours on South Mountain to explain the rock art, to explain how to see these Phoenix lights, to explain how to see these day sightings, to talk about the petroglyphs, and so did Charles Holbrook. Now this went on for a good 10 to 15 years. He was the first park ranger here until he passed away. Now when he passed away, all his information was tucked away, buried, put in a folder, and concealed in the Phoenix department for the last 80 years. Nobody talks about this. Even the archaeologist to this day does not talk about Charles Holbrook, does not talk about how he was here to protect the tombs. Matter of fact, his stories, it's literature, man. There's written facts in the folders, government folders, saying that he protected people from digging up tombs left by the Mayans and the Hohokam to leave them alone. He protected the tombs because they say that the Mayans are going to come back one day and reopen these tombs. And
Amazing.
these Phoenix lights and these things that we see in the sky today are protecting what's concealed in these tombs. Now, it's really fascinating. So let's go back to your first question. How did they get here?
Okay, but hang on one second. How did we get here? We're going to come back to that, but I got a caller on who probably wants to talk to you. So let's bring him on, and don't forget that question because we're going to bring that back. Let's see if the caller's still on the line. Caller, you still there? Hello? Hello, you still there, caller? This is the Dave Darren Show. You still there? Okay, we might have lost him. It looks like he's still on, so if he comes back, if you're still on there, caller, make sure that you start talking and we'll put you on the line. If anyone else wants to call and talk to Jeff or myself, the phone number is 609-467-4000. And let me make sure that I got everything connected here. Yeah, caller, you still there or not? Okay, we'll get back to Jeff. So Jeff, answer the question, how did they get here? Let's start off with that.
So it's really interesting. Now, when we study the petroglyphs, when we study the oral traditions, when we study the history of the Phoenix lights, of these creatures in the sky, especially now, when you take religion out of the Bible and look at it as like a history book, it tells you what these things are. It point blank tells you that there are things in the sky. As a matter of fact, look at Moses in the Exodus. Okay, in the book of Numbers, in the book of Exodus, it says that Moses and his followers followed a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. And it led him and the Israelites out of Egypt. And it also talks about that when this pillar of cloud stopped in the sky everyone pitched camp. And sometimes that thing in the sky wouldn't move for a year. And that thing just sat there. And when that thing started to move, that's when the people started to move. You know, a lot of pastors, they don't talk about this. The book tells you, look, man, right when they got to the Red Sea, that thing went behind Moses, opened up the Red Sea. When everybody went across and went to the other side, were safely on the other side, that thing went around back through the sky, went behind Moses, and closed up the waters.
Okay, now let me.
And
let
who
me,
was
let,
it that brought the
hey,
people?
Jeff, let me ask you this question. So first of all, I usually don't do religious programming, and I'm not. I know we're bringing it up a little bit, but let me ask you this question. You know, I went to Roman Catholic school, okay, and when it's funny, I was in Catholic school, and the teacher did this, and it's still in my mind, even though she probably didn't realize she put this thought pattern in my mind. But I was in a classroom with about 30 kids. She told a story to the first kid. That first kid passed the story to the second kid, third kid, fourth kid, back the next line. And by the time it got to the last kid, he was supposed to tell the story to see if it matched up with that very first individual that was told the story, and it didn't match up at all. So how do we know, and like I said, I don't do a religious program, but how do we know that the Bible and every story in the Bible is true? Can we really believe that it's factual and it's leading to the points you're bringing up with the how do we know? How do we know that?
Now that is true, because the Bible was all just word of mouth for at least
Word of
30
mouth,
years.
right? No, there was no technology to write it down, put it in a hard
Right.
drive. None of that. It was
That
stories.
they discovered, you know, at the time. Now, since then, biblical archaeology has proven a lot of stories and myths that's in the Bible. Matter of fact, the Red Sea, they found the chariots on the bottom of the Red Sea from the Egyptians. You know, the Mount Sinai, Mount Belalah is the real Mount Sinai. When you do the research,
Not to make a joke out of it, but that chariot was not from Charlton Heston's movie, was it? It wasn't from that, was it? It was not that chariot from Ben-Hur. Okay, so they found the chariot from religious times. Okay.
They found the wheels and they found the chariots all eaten up with coral now, you know, because it's been sitting on the bottom of the Red Sea for, you know, thousands of years, you know, but they verified that, you know, at least, you know, an army has passed through the Red Sea. How it got there, they don't know. But, you know, but the oral traditions, the Bible talks about, you know, the opening up the waters and this and that. And I'm sure, you know, there's a lot of, you know, well, how do we know? You know, I think biblical archaeology, man, has really taken a toll, has brought, you know, the Bible into the next level, if you will, if we can determine on whether or not the Bible is actually factual. Until the Sumerian texts got discovered. Now, when they got discovered and deciphered, you know, that's when you're talking about the Anunnaki. And there's a lot of things in the Bible, you know, that has been left out, you know, that doesn't really make sense. Because it says, you know, let us make man in our image. Who the hell is us, man?
Wow.
You know, who the hell is us? But the Anunnaki, the Sumerian text, talks about who the us is. It's them. You know, it's the Anunnaki. Okay? And there's a lot of information that has been left out. You know, Ezekiel. Okay, now it says, when I can't remember the passage right offhand, but you can search it on the internet. But it says Ezekiel they say to him that he had a dream. Okay, that it was a dream that this guy with wings came down, and this thing was next to him. He says when the eyes moved, when the thing moved, the eyes moved around with the thing. So he's describing this type of, I don't know if it's a craft or if it's another living entity, another living being, if you will, and it actually takes him up into the sky. It takes him up, and he's actually looking down on Earth. You know, now they're saying, oh, well, it's just a dream, but what if it wasn't? You know, there's a lot of stuff that the church has purposely left out, you know, and has purposely covered up and is not telling us, you know,
Okay. Well, so
about these things.
okay, so
So,
let's
back
get
to my point.
okay, but yeah, back to your point. So far, there were 2 points. Remember, let's jump to number 1 and 2. Let's do one quickly because we've involved a lot. So
Yeah,
first of all,
so-
how did they get here? And then secondly, what are they doing here now? I guess. And these are the beings that you're talking about. That you're not seeing spaceships. You're just seeing beings that are here. So how did they get here to begin with? Were they part of the development of the human race, or who are they? What are you seeing?
Well, when you study the petroglyphs, okay, the petroglyphs are talking. There's carvings of giants on the rocks here in Phoenix, Arizona. There's evidence of possible constructions of giants to conceal, some of the tombs that are out here on South Mountain. There's a lot of unexplained boulders, massive boulders that are been put in place, you know, to construct walls, to conceal doorways to tombs, things like that. Like I said, there's a lot of flying serpents, flying orbs, flying crosses, flying crooked snakes. Okay, a lot of symbols, if you will, that was seen in the sky. So when we take that into consideration, when we take the whole outcome of it, when you look at it, and then we go to Genesis 6, and it says these things were cast down. They were cast down out of heaven. And the people there worshiped these things as gods. And from them came giants. Oh my God, dude. Is that talking about the story up here on the mountains?
Were they cast
Is
out?
that what the story is on the mountains?
Were they cast?
Right.
Were they
It's
cast
the
out
exact
of
same
heaven?
story. It's Luke.
Were they cast out of heaven? So we're getting the bad entities from on earth from being cast out. Is that what we're getting? Are we getting the worst beings sent to us?
This is the biggest conspiracy of the world, that these things are real. These things have interacted with mankind before. And when you look at the history, you know, it wasn't only the Holocom that disappeared. It wasn't the only tribe. There's many tribes around the earth that disappeared around the same time. You know, so something happened. And, you know, what about the Great Flood? You know, the giants were wiped out, you know, along with everybody else. But the Sumerian text, and this makes a lot of sense because the Bible only talks about Noah. You know, but the Sumerian text, which we can prove, which we can carve and date, you know, which is older than the Bible, you know, because the Bible, like we said, you know, up until the Essenes, you know, the Dead Sea Scrolls, things like that, you know, where it talks about, you know, the coming to Jesus and things like this. But up until this point, you know, the Sumerian text says that it wasn't just Noah that was saved. There was many other races, you know, that was saved from this flood. And the reason the Sumerian texts say that the reason why the flood came is because man became too noisy. Okay, and so they wanted to quiet man up. Things are
You
evil
mean
here.
corrupt?
There was
Actually,
bloodthirsty giant here.
Actually, you
stuff
mean
like that.
corrupt, don't you? You mean corrupt. We became
Right.
morally not. We didn't get loud and noisy because I'm loud and noisy. I don't want to be destroyed, but we got corrupt and immoral.
Think of it now. Yeah, think of how many people's on the earth now. You know.
By the way,
So,
let me ask you this question. Let me ask
so
you
the whole point.
Let me ask you this question. So a lot of the things that you're talking about, for instance, a lot of the carvings on the walls, these stones and things in Phoenix. I happen to live in Phoenix, and actually Wendy, someone who does she's investigating some of these haunted places, these haunted hotels, and so I'm going to be going out with Wendy. I missed it last week because of our dog was sick, but I apologize to Wendy because I want to go with her on a paranormal expedition. Now, you're in Phoenix. You know where the Phoenix Lights are. You've seen these entities. You've seen these carvings. So, you know, I would like to take the show on the road and go there with you and do some videography work and come out there and see for myself and let our audience see what you're seeing. Because I've told our audience, I've never seen a UFO. And I've never ever seen one, and I don't lie about stuff. So I'd like to see what you're seeing and bring it to our audience. Can we do that?
Absolutely. I do free tours on the mountain. I'm not, a lot of people in this business are out to make money off these things, out to exploit the Phoenix Lights and all these UFOs and stuff. That's not what I'm about. Matter of fact, the book, Petroglyphs in the Sky, the Phoenix Lights, Petroglyphs in the Sky, Volume 1, I don't even make any money off this thing. I told the publishers to give the money to the foster kids here in Phoenix. So I don't make one dime. I do free tours here. I started my tours in 2005. I must have taken close to over 100 people up on the mountains. I explained to them, what the petroglyphs truly mean, what they're talking about as far as the UFOs and the spirits, and what the spirals represent, and the doorways, and the time of the seasons. When to see them, when not to see them, things like this. And sometimes when I'm doing the tour, we do see an orb in the sky. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we do see these things in the sky while the tour is happening.
Right.
So, but they come in patterns. And that's the thing that I discovered over a 2.5, 3 year long period of sky watching. I mean, they're not here all the time. All right. So when you look at my Facebook page, and when I first moved here, in this area, I was catching them a lot. But now they're starting to go away. All right. So it's a pattern. And it has everything to do with the sun and why. Why do these things? You have to ask yourself, okay, so these UFOs, these things like hang around mountains. What is so significant about mountains? Well, mountains holes, especially the mountains around this valley, was created by fault lines, by volcanoes. So we have all these fault lines around the Valley of the Sun. Now, the natives and the petroglyphs say when the sun gets in the right position of these fault lines on the mountains, it opens up these doorways. And this is where we come into the spirals at. So the spirals going clockwise, going in, is a doorway in. And the spiral going counterclockwise is a doorway out. Now, depending on where it ends at, if it ends going down, that means it's the crack. It's the crack in that boulder where it's carved at, or it's the ground. If it's a spiral going up and up, then we're talking Phoenix Lights. There's a doorway in the sky there that these things appear like a porthole, if you will. Some people like to call it. And they come through this porthole. And why are they here? They're here to absorb the energy. They're after the energy. And a lot of people, the Phoenix Lights went across Arizona. Well, actually, when you do your true investigations on this, you'll find out that these lights are bouncing from one mountain to the next mountain to the next mountain. They're absorbing the energy as they go. Now, how did I discover this? How did I find this out? Because in 2004, I noticed that the lights were appearing on the east side of Phoenix in Mesa. So I purposely moved to Mesa, and I watched these lights go towards South Mountain. I followed the lights to the mountain as close as I could, and I got to Mesa Community College, and I went up on the bleachers, and I stood up on the football stadium bleachers, and I could see the whole city. And I noticed that these lights was on the east side of South Mountain the whole summer of 2004. They were appearing doing massive formations right in the exact same spot. Now later on, I come to find out that spot holds a power plant. Now this power plant is bored down into the fault line. It's off of Ray Road. You can find all this information on my website. You can find the website on my Facebook page, and you can see the map. And I show you exactly where this fault line is and where this power plant sits today. Now this is interesting too, because I dug up an old map, and this map shows where when the first pilgrims got here, they documented all the canal systems, where the ruins from the leftover holocombs, where the buildings and structures were. And it just so happens that where that power plant sits today was the heart of the holocomb city. That was the major spot for the holocombs, was right there on the east side of South Mountain where this power plant sits today.
So now
watching these lights.
Okay, that power plant that exists there today, was it built with the knowledge that something was there before the power plant, or it was just built there by coincidence?
No, they had to have known. It's
They had to
specifically,
have known.
it's strategically put there to absorb the energy from the spot line from South Mountain.
Okay, and these entities, now you mentioned that these lights are not craft. You mentioned that these are life forces, these lights, or they're portals in these spirals, correct? So they can be multiple things. Okay, so that power plant that's there and that fault line that's there, these entities, they're absorbing energy from this area, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now, I do know that South Mountain, because I used to do a show on terrestrial radio, believe it or not. And I know that there's a lot of the radio antennas on top of South Mountain. So is there any potential confusion of these antennas, which usually antennas are brightly lit? Is there any risk of that at all? Because like I said, I've never been up to see the Phoenix Lights. Is there any risk of that at all? Misinterpretation?
No, these Phoenix lights are big, solid orange orbs. Sometimes they're white, and they're just hovering in the sky. And they're 100 times, 200, 400, 1,000 times bigger than those lights on South Mountain from the antennas.
Okay.
I mean, they're huge. They're massive orange orbs. And when you look at the videos of 2004 that I was filming, some you can find on my website, some you can find on my Facebook page here, and some you can find on YouTube under Petroglyphs in the Sky. You'll see these huge orange amber lights. Now, as I was watching the lights in 2004, matter of fact, I did a couple news stories then. I did about 4 or 5 newscasts at the time. And I noticed that these little white airplanes, okay, so we're back to these little airplanes. All right, now they were waiting for the lights. I documented all this. They're hanging right above the power plant, about 2,000 to 3,000 feet up, and they're circling. All right, now when these lights appear above that power plant, these airplanes start zooming in after them. They're going after them full throttle. And when they get within a mile radius of these lights disappear. They just go away. Airplanes come in and they circle right above that power plant for like 15 minutes. Then they leave, lights come right back. Right? So it was a cat and mouse game the whole summer of 2004. So the end result of the newscast was a big conspiracy saying, oh, we're seeing flares. We're seeing flares in Tucson 150 miles away. When that's not the case here. These lights are in the city. They're right there next to South Mountain. There's no way that those are flares 150 miles away. Now, I did find out that when these lights start popping up in the sky, the military does release flares, okay? And to the untrained eye, it might look like, oh, that's a Phoenix light, but it doesn't last that long. The flares, you can see the anti-collision lights from the airplanes dropping these flares out. You can see the smoke. You can see how the flares are small, and they're illumination flares, so they light up everything. They light up the night sky. You can see the smoke, and they do not last that very long. But yet these Phoenix lights sit motionless in the sky, nothing dropping them out. You don't see an airplane zooming by, throwing these flares out. These lights appear in the sky very soft, very silently, very quietly, because they don't make any noise. They don't make any shadows. And that's the reason why they're getting away with it here in Phoenix, is because no one is paying attention. They're not making any noise. They're not making any sudden movements, if you will, for people to actually notice them. They're secretly coming in here, and no one's paying attention. Everyone's driving around, going to school, doing whatever, going to grocery stores, not watching. You need to watch. That's how they're getting away with it. They've been getting away with it for years now here in the skies. Okay, and that's how people are missing them, because they're not watching them. Well, now, I'm watching them, dude. Yeah. I'm seeing them.
Well, not only are they not watching them, they're not watching them because you mentioned that they're a light that's sort of not moving. So people see the light, they get used to that light. And then because the light's not moving, they're not thinking it's a UFO because they're not thinking of machinery or technology. They're just thinking that they're misinterpreting the brightness of the light. Maybe they just think it's a natural occurrence of some, maybe an antenna light or something like that. So that's why they're not. But now But I know that a lot of people talk about the Phoenix Lights, they talk about a triangular shape, and they talk about it
Yeah.
moving. They talk about it moving, though. They do talk about visually moving. So now you did mention it's between one mountain and another. So how do you equate the fact that you're mostly saying that these are immobile, but the Phoenix Lights were supposed to be highly mobile and moving?
Now, the ones I was filming in 2004 were stationary. They were watching. They were over the power plant. There has been news reports. There has been other sightings. Well, yes, they are flying information above the city. A matter of fact, last November, I had a fleet of lights, a fleet of Phoenix Lights go over my apartment, and I filmed them. You can find that on my Facebook page. You can find it on my website. Okay, so yes, they do fly in a fleet and over the city.
But now you're thinking those are
then
not
again-
craft. You're thinking those are not
But-
craft. You're thinking those are beings of some type. Correct?
Then again, right, because of misinformation and people not understanding this and hasn't studied it for the last 20 years as much as I have, they automatically, assume because they're just not, they just don't understand, and it's not their fault, because they don't know what's going on. They automatically assume that it's a craft, but what if it's not? What if it is something different? What if each light is the beam? Because we don't see any structural object here. We don't see any, it's not blocking out the stars like everyone's claiming.
Right,
Each
right.
light is in a formation. Okay?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and just like the military here, they fly in V formations. Well, so do sometimes these things do.
Mhm.
So it's all a matter of understanding. And because for the last, 60, 70, 80 years of wrong information and people selling books, selling movies, trying to get famous, trying to do stuff, sell movie tickets, blah, blah, blah. They're telling people a bunch of stuff that they don't have any clue on. They don't know. They haven't studied. Especially, I was the one that brought up the petroglyphs out here in the mountains. And people are going around, what is the Phoenix Light that people are going on saying still unexplained? Man, that's bullcrap, dude. The petroglyphs on the mountains explain what the Phoenix Lights are. It explains the history of what these things are. I was the one that brought all this to the UFO community back in 2005 when I first discovered it. That's why the news was all over me, man. That's when the History Channel came knocking, UFO Hunter Show, and True TV. I've done a lot of cable shows, and it's because of the new perspective on the Phoenix Lights connected to the Hohokam Indians and the petroglyphs here in Phoenix, Arizona. Now,
So-
that's a major discovery.
Yeah,
No one has ever done this before.
Why hasn't this continued on into like a domino effect? Like you're talking about a lot of things, a lot of these TV programs that you were a part of. Now it seems like when you watch TV, you don't really see a lot of. Well, they haven't converted what was perceived as unreal, if you want to say that. And why haven't they factually made it to be something that's real and authentic? Because you said I can go to those caves and I can see these drawings, these pictures of art on these caves, and you said that it's going to be hard for you to really pinpoint my ability to see these lights. But I can go into these, I can see these carvings on the rocks tomorrow, right? I can see them tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
Right, so you know where they are and I can see them. But why hasn't anything been converted into solid fact at this moment?
Actually, as far as, for years, it's only been a theory. Oh, we think that the Native Americans were carving UFO sightings there. All these years, it's been a theory until I proved it, until my research came around. I sat there by South Mountain for 2.5 years, and I didn't leave my kitchen window with my video camera outside that window, and I was watching the mountains here. I saw a lot of crazy things. When I went out there to investigate it, I'm looking for a crop circle. I'm looking for some kind of evidence that this thing went down on the mountain, because I saw it. The video camera filmed it. But when I go out to that area, what do I find? I find stick-figure drawings of men looking up at flying snakes, flying crosses, flying lights, stuff like that I filmed the day before. All right? No one in history has ever done this before. And when I brought this to the news, and I took it right out of the archaeologist's book.
Right.
I brought the archaeologist because he's got drawings of the petroglyphs out there, and I said, look at this picture here, and now look at my video. It's the exact same thing. You can't deny it. They verified the sighting, they verified the video is legit. They verified the carvings. Everything is to a T. And since then, there's like flying diamonds out there. I found flying diamonds. I found here it is. I don't know if we can pick it up, but on the front cover of my book, you can see the formation of the Phoenix Lights there. See the arc?
Yeah. Okay, I do.
Right. So maybe we can find what I'm talking about. But I wasn't prepared for
so
it.
let me while you're thumbing through the book there. So let me ask you the question. So you brought this to whoever you brought it to. You've got the drawings, you got the video. The video is always. I know people criticize videos because they see lights in the sky with the videos. You see things moving, but of course people could move the camera rather quickly. So how can you convince someone that doesn't believe via a video? Because the videos are never crystal clear. They're always so vague and so.
Well,
how can you prove a video these days?
some of my sightings, like when they flew right by my window, are crystal clear.
They are crystal
like
clear.
Some of the serpents, this flying serpent, this flying spider, if you will, that flew by my window, that made video of the day on News Channel 3. And this is what this whole book is about. This is the first book. I made this. It took me 15 years to write this massive book. All right, and the publishers, and there's tons of photographs in it. And the publishers said, well, it's so big, we're going to make it into 2 books. And so this first book here talks about the petroglyphs, talks about the lost history of Phoenix, shows all the facts, and brings up all the lost things that are here. Talks about the tombs here on South Mountain. The second book, waiting to be published by the publishers, goes more into detail on how to see the Phoenix Lights, where to see them, my journey, things like that. And you can find some of that on my website here today. So here's some of the photographs here that you can find on South Mountain. I don't know if you can see that or not.
I do. Yeah, I can see it. I can see the figures
So
there, right?
here, this top picture here, okay, you can see 2 men looking up at a crooked snake in the sky. Now that was the kicker. That was the one that I brought to News Channel 3 here with my sightings. And I said, look, I found the exact same thing in the sky that is carved on South Mountain. Right? That was the one that started it all. That's when I knew that I was right, that these petroglyphs are in fact ancient UFO sightings, if you will, to us. Entity sightings.
I guess the first thing you'd have to
And
do
here we
is
go.
okay.
And
Well, let's go back. Let's go back to
We
the
can
other
see
one.
the flying serpent.
Okay, but
We
let's
can
go.
see the flying serpent.
Okay, I don't think you can hear me. Let's go back to the picture with the two beings there and the let's go back to that one, the very first picture. Okay, so now someone's going to say when they see that, the first thing anyone that's skeptical about this, they're going to want to carbon date those pictures, those drawings, right? So now, how do you validate the age that they were derived or drawn? How do you do that?
Well, we can't carbon date the petroglyphs.
You can't carbon date.
We can't carbon date the petroglyphs. So what we can do is we can carbon date the pottery shards left behind from the Hohokam. And this is how we found out that not only the Hohokam are here, but many other tribes came from all over the lands to South Mountain, to Phoenix, Arizona. Matter of fact, back in the day, South Mountain was called Mount Sapoa, Mountain of Mercy. Okay, because I found altars up there. It talks about the sacrifice that was going on there. There's a lot of worship and trade and sacrifice that was going on here at this mountain. This is a holy mountain, a holy land. All right, so we cannot carbon date the petroglyphs, but we can carbon date and distinguish where these pottery shards came from, what part of the land, because not all the dirt from the pottery shards is from Arizona. There's some from Oklahoma. There's some from Utah. There's some from California. There's some from Mexico. All right. So all these pottery shards, you know, is evidence that other tribes from different parts of the land in the United States was coming to Phoenix, Arizona, specifically for South Mountain to see the Phoenix Lights, to see these things in the sky.
Right. Getting back to those drawings again, when you know, ancient times when people drew things, they drew them on stone, however they drew them. But isn't there a possibility that, you know, when we think of things in the sky, for instance, not that long ago, there was a pretty big meteor that came through the Phoenix area, and some people were driving down the road and they had their action cams on, their driving cams, and they actually were able to film it. And some people, they had their cameras in front of their houses for security protection, and they didn't actually see it, but the lighting got so bright in the street that it was equated to that meteor. So ancient times, a long time ago, people would see things in the sky, potentially misinterpret a meteor for something that was drawn there and draw it as accurately as they could. So, but there's many of these drawings based upon everywhere in the entire planet, whether you go to Greece and so there's a continuation of this going on all over the world, right? It's not just that one isolated section of South Mountain. It's all over. So
It's the same stories.
Same
stories
story, right?
all over the world, just maybe told a little bit different.
Yeah.
But when you examine, you know, the myths and the legends and things like that, when you take a second look at it, it's basically talking about the same thing. You know, the same stuff that was going on.
Uh-huh. So the picture that we saw in your book there, was that more of that wasn't a spacecraft, that were these beings, right? That's what it was. It was the spirits or beings that they were looking up in the sky and seeing, correct?
Right. Like I call it like a crooked snake, because it's kind of like a bent snake or whatever.
Right.
And I filmed the exact same formation coming off South Mountain. They're actually coming and going from South Mountain and some of the other mountains around the valley here.
Huh.
And so this is the reason why, you know, that we find petroglyphs in certain areas, but we don't find petroglyphs in those areas. You know, it's because it's a photograph. It's a time stamp. They didn't have video cameras back then.
Right.
They had stone boulders to record what had happened in that area. You know, to record it, to mark it down for generations to come. And so when you look at the petroglyphs, you're not just supposed to look at face value. You're just not supposed to look at the art. You're supposed to include the whole landscape in with the art, because the artist is including the landscape with the art. For instance, there's like a lot of deers up there with like these crazy looking antlers. Okay, now when you step back from the panel and you look, you'll actually see that those antlers are actually trail markers behind him on the face of the mountain. Each antler is a trail behind the carving going up the mountain. Another way is the coyotes. The coyotes and the dogs and the animals, they're forever looking in spots where the next story will be found at. Mm-hmm. All right, so when you come up to a petroglyph and you see a coyote looking this way, well, go that way for a couple blocks. You know, you'll find more of the story, more of the petroglyphs. So they actually, each panel is a story, is a testimony of what had happened there, what can be found there, and where the next story is in the next chapter.
Right. How do you go beyond where you are right now? Because you've taken this evidence and this group of information to a lot of TV stations. Is it being covered up by our government? You said the airplanes are flying around. They're the small white airplanes. And of course, we don't hear anything about those small white airplanes going there to visualize or see something in the skies. How do we get beyond this? Is it a cover-up? Is that what this is?
You know, I'm the first one to do this. You know, so I'm not out to, like I said, to make money. I'm out to bring the information back. I want people to start paying attention to this mountain more. I want people to go look at the petroglyphs a second time. Hey, let's take a second look at these petroglyphs. Let's take a look at the lost history that I dug up, that I've proven with all the facts and figures and file papers and blah 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 tucked away from people for the last 80 years. Let's re-examine what's going on here. We need more people involved in this so they will start going out there with me and start watching the skies more. And once they start seeing them, they'll start seeing, oh wow, look at that black helicopter hanging around there. Look at that, there's a light. Here comes an airplane. They'll start noticing all this crazy stuff that I was saying years before.
And that's why I said
that's the whole point.
And that's why I said I want to go out there with you, because it's easy to do a radio show like this and have someone come on and tell me about it. But, I'm a pretty honest guy. So when I come out there with you and I see stuff, I'll be amazed, or I'll question you and I'll say, well, what is this? What are we seeing here? So I'd like to be the guy that comes out there and witnesses this and have the audience that listens to the show here see what I see via seeing what you're going to show me.
That'd be great. It's like fishing. Just because you go out there on the mountain is not a guarantee that you're going to see something.
Right. Yeah.
But it will bring you closer. Okay. And usually when people come to me and they've seen these things already in the sky, it's a lot easier for them to notice them in the sky. Unless but for someone who has never seen them before, it might take them a little while. Like my friend Jason, we go up hiking on the mountain. We've been hiking on the mountain, for over 5 years now, and up until that point, we have never seen anything together until one day. It took him 5 years to see an orb in the sky with me on the mountain. But yet, there's other people that I just met who have taken up on the mountain, showing the petroglyphs or doing the tour. There's an orb right there, So it's like a hit and miss. I go more into that on my website, in my book, on why this is, why certain people see them more than others. So that's a big question, that I've kind of gone into.
It'd be fascinating just to see the petroglyphs. I mean, that'd be a start, right? For me to see that. Because I'm not even sure our audience here that watches the show has ever seen what you've seen, with the exception of showing us the book with it. But if I go out there and I take a camera and so obviously we have to do this during the day, right? Because to visually see that, we got to do that during the day
and
to see the night viewing.
There's a window too, because it gets really hot out there. The snakes come out, so we don't want to die of heat, exhaustion. All these people come in from out of town. They think that they can handle the mountains, and they die of heat stroke. So there's a window, and I like doing tours between I start around at the end of November and all the way up until about June or July. So that's the window, and January, February, March, April is like the best times to see these entities in the sky coming and going from a mountain. Because like I said before, it's a pattern. All right? They follow the sun, they follow the fault lines, and they follow the seasons of the sun. They track the equinox and the solstice. That's a big kicker. Right? This is a secret. This is knowledge that you will not hear from anybody else, because no one else has watched this as much as I have. And this is why we see them in some months. We don't see them in other months. They come back, they leave, they come back, they leave. It's a pattern. They're following the sun. They're following the fault line. They're following the times of the seasons.
Wow. Okay. So unfortunately, we missed the January, February, March, April. But you still do tours all the way up till July. So between now and July, we get a couple months where maybe I can come out with you and see the stuff and share it with the audience here, right?
Yes, I do sky watching on the west side over there by that football stadium.
Oh, okay.
That's where the original Phoenix Lights took place at. When you look south from that stadium, that's where the lights took place at. It's interesting that this is where that football stadium that looks like a UFO is sitting out there in the middle of the desert, when about 6 to 10 miles away is where the original Phoenix Lights happened at. So I do go out there at nighttime and I do sky watch, because I have seen them out there. You can look at my website. You can look at my Facebook page. I have some of the best photographs of these Phoenix Lights that there is to this day. And I filmed them in the exact same spot on the west side of South Mountain, where the original Phoenix Lights 1997 took place at.
Cool. Okay. So that's it. Hook me up because I'm hooked up with Wendy. We're going to do some paranormal investigation, and we're going to be doing that. And I like to go out with you and see the Phoenix Lights. And of course, it's a hit and miss. I agree with that. It's going to be hard to actually coordinate that. But we'll be able to go and see these artistic drawings on these walls that you showed us in the book. So I like to film that because I've never seen anything like that at all. I mean, I'm from the New York City and Philadelphia. We don't have stuff like this in New York City and Philadelphia. If you got them here in Phoenix, I'd like to see them. So
when I lived in New York during 9/11, during the no-fly zone, I had some UFOs in the sky.
Now those were UFOs. So now you're telling me because now the South Mountain, the Phoenix Lights, you're describing them as not UFOs. Now in New York City, you actually saw UFOs. So that's now we're.
Man, I understand why. So I lived 150 miles in 2001 away from New York City. Matter of fact, that year I saw the towers before they fell. And when they fell, I used to take my son and his friend to school. I used to walk to school with them every morning. And we saw the smoke. And there was no fly zones. There was nothing in the sky for 5 days, 7 days, something like that.
Could be,
and my son's out there playing, and he comes right into the window. Dad, UFO, UFO. So I go right into the window. This is what, he asked me about Art Bell, talking if I ever got on the show. This is where they cut me off at when I was talking about this. And so I went to the window, and I looked up, and I saw, like kids jumping jacks, across with 4 silver spears hooked to them. Okay, like the kids jumping jack with the ball and the jacks.
Right.
Okay?
I know that. Right.
There was a jack in the sky. A jack in the sky was going counterclockwise a few hundred feet above the apartment complex. All right, going right above us, and my son's friend was like, "That's probably an airplane or something." And I'm like, "Dude, that's no airplane, man." And drones wasn't even around back in that time. This thing didn't have a propeller on it. It reminded me of, that painting from Germany, that real old ancient 1700 painting where it shows these jacks, these orbs, and these scrolls in the sky.
Okay. I don't know
these
that, but
jacks.
okay.
You'll have to look it up. That's what it reminded me of. It was a jack, and it went over our heads, and then when it went over the trees to this park, another orb appeared to the north of it, and it had a red tip and a white tail, and it was getting ready to merge with the jacks until some trees got in the way. Now that's when I was just convinced that something was here. Not only that, but I was seeing, I guess New York lights. I was seeing lights out there. I lived on a hill in an apartment complex, and there was lights that were hanging over a hill. So I did see a lot of sightings out there in New York at that time. It wasn't until 2005, 2006, climbing up on South Mountain, and lo and behold, what did I find? I found a petroglyph of jacks carved on South Mountain left by the Holocom.
Wow. Similar to what you saw in New York. Same thing as what you saw in New York. Right.
Absolutely. Same stuff, same thing. So it's just not here in Phoenix. It's all over the world. Look at Mexico. When you look at the sightings in Mexico, when you look at the sightings in Guatemala and some of the other places I can't think of, but all these other places outside the United States that are filming these UFOs, now they're not calling them crafts. They're calling them, creatures, space entities. They're like they're flying serpents, if you will. They're snakes. They're creatures. They're scary things, man. And this is the reason why the government isn't talking about this. This is why the news doesn't talk about UFOs here in Phoenix anymore. Because all they do talk about is that, movie that's shown on the Phoenix Lights with wrong information, with the person, leading that on to make money and sell tickets and sell books. But they don't talk about UFOs anymore here in Arizona, especially my stuff. I've given the news my books. I've given them, copies of my books. They've gone through it.
Yeah.
But you know what's going on? It's a little bit too much information. Well, this person is saying still unexplained Phoenix Lights. I have explained the Phoenix Lights, okay? And it's not all that cracked up to be, okay? The history of the Phoenix Lights, the history of these things in the skies above Phoenix, it is not something that is, if you will, wonderful, okay? Look at the history. You have to look at the history. And the archaeologist knows this. This is why he doesn't talk about it in his books. This is why they shut people off from this information. This is why they buried this information 80 years ago that I have uncovered. It's because all this is not a myth. It's not a myth. It's not a story. It's real. It's true stories. I have backed it up with all my facts, figures, and all the stuff that I've dug up in the Phoenix government departments and the field work and the sky watching over the last 20 years here in Phoenix. And this is something this is the reason why the government isn't talking about this. Okay, because what happened to the HOCOM? HOCOM are the people who went missing. Okay, so when we move, we take our belongings with us. Yet the HOCOM didn't. They just simply up and vanished with no trace of them. And they left all their belongings behind. Now, the stories go on to say that there were survivors to this Holocaust, if you will. They hid in caves. They saw what was going on. They were afraid. And they knew that if they were going to continue to live in this valley, that eventually they would have to go back to war with these spirits of the earth and the sky. And they were afraid. They were terrified. They put a curse in Phoenix, Arizona, and they vowed never to come back to this land ever again. This was a cursed land. And they gathered up their belongings. They buried all the gold here. They buried all the tombs and all the other idols and things like that. And they went back to Mexico. They went back to the homeland through Casa Grande. They stopped at Casa Grande for a couple years. They taught those people how to build canals, things like that. But they never stepped foot back in the city of Phoenix again. For 400 years, nobody lived here because it was terrifying. There were tribes of Indians living on the outskirts of Phoenix. Yeah, they saw the lights. They saw the Phoenix light. They saw the serpents. They saw the crazy things in the sky. They were afraid. They knew what was going on because they knew they were told by their ancestors what had happened to the people who dealt last time with the Phoenix lights, with the things in the sky, and it brought them their downfall. They knew that it was not something to be messed with. Okay, and it wasn't until 1800s, give or take, when Jack Spelling, came through and looked at Phoenix, Arizona, and said, "Hey, this is great for farmland. Hey, look at the canals, left by the Indians," and it started all over again. That's when Phoenix started to come back, and that's why we're called Phoenix, because it's a fiery bird that rose out from the ashes of the former civilization. But they're not telling you what had happened to the former civilization that disappeared, okay? The history says giants, fallen angels, things in the sky, taken away, scary stuff. No, all this is erased from history.
But
they do not want you to know this.
Can they
The
find
Native Americans that live here. Go ahead.
You mentioned that this one civilization that was messing around with the Phoenix lights have vanished. They're gone, right? You mentioned that there was a Holocaust there. So there's always
Right.
archaeologists that are digging up and finding remains of skeletons of dinosaurs and all that. Why aren't they actually going to these areas in Phoenix and digging up and finding, well, here was a civilization here at some period of time, and we see all of these belongings of these existing people. You even mentioned the Mayans were here before. Why aren't we excavating and going on expeditions to get all this stuff and find out about these people that were there at this time? Now, we do see the carvings on the wall and the artistic works, but why aren't we going beyond that and finding that artistic work and then digging there to see what else is there beyond the art on the wall? Why are we doing that?
Right.
Why are we
Because that's the reason, it's the whole reason why they're not letting people know about the tombs here. Why they're not digging up the tombs
Digging
and
up the
finding out
tombs,
what's
right.
buried here. They don't want people to know about this. They want this to go away. After Holbrook died, they put all his information away. Sure, they built a lookout point where he used to look out for people looking for the tombs and stuff like that, and tomb robbers. Sure, they dedicated that hill to him. Sure, they dedicated Holbrook Trail to him. But what did he actually do? They don't tell you that. You know, they don't. They erase what he was doing here. He was protecting the tombs. He was telling people about the Mayans. He was telling people that there are sky spirits here, and they're apparently watching the mountains here. You know, he knew all this crazy stuff. And once he died, they buried him.
Right.
So if they go up and, you know, well, first of all, they can't prove that the Hohokam simply migrated somewhere else. All right, that's one reason why they're not finding other civilization from the Hohokam, because that's not what happened. They got taken away. The people that survived, they got the hell out of Dodge, dude. They knew that they weren't going to live in this valley no more. So there were people that survived. There were people that got taken away. And so that's the true history here of the Phoenix Lights of Phoenix, Arizona. And so they don't want that knowledge to be known. So they're burying it. They've buried it for the last 80 years. Wow. And I was finding all this crazy stuff. I've been doing news reports. I was doing the radio shows. I was doing cable shows, you know, for that first year. And I'm telling them, look, dude, I found a tomb. I found this over there. I found that over there. The archaeologist isn't talking about this, dude. What's going on with this? You know, until I found the files, you know, from the Lost History of Phoenix, and it verified that whole year of my discoveries. It was all point blank. This huge folder was there. And I'm like, dude, I knew I was right. You can't deny the evidence that's buried away that I took photographs of and put it in my book and verified through all the hiking and everything else like that. So yeah, it's true. And
but yet that
it is what it is.
yet that area that you're talking about, the area where you're seeing all this stuff, you know, Area 51 is blocked off where no one can go into that area to find out what's in Area 51. So the area that you're talking about, which I can go with you to see some of these things, why isn't it blocked off? If the government is hiding this, doesn't want us to know this, why isn't it sanctioned off like Area 51 with cameras, with people security there, to prevent people like you and I going there to discover, and then you and I bring it out to the 1,000 people that watch the show, and then those 1,000 people are heavily involved, and 1,000 people make things go viral, because today we got the internet, things go viral. Why aren't they scared that someone's going to start making this domino into something that's becoming obviously there? Why aren't they sanctioning it off that area? Why aren't they closing it down?
Well, let's examine Area 51 and all the other secret bases that the United States government has. Hell, dude, we need that stuff. We need those secret bases because we're coming up with technology that we don't want our enemies to know about.
Right.
So yeah, we're keeping people away from that. It doesn't necessarily mean it's got a flying saucer and an alien in it.
Right.
No, this is our government secrets that they don't want people to know about. You know,
Mm-hmm.
So this is hush hush, just like, you know, when the nuclear missiles or the nuclear bombs was, you know, back in World War II, it was all hush hush. It was top secret. You know, that's basically what Area 51 is. You know, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's an alien there, there's a spacecraft there, things like that. Who knows? It could be. But the whole point of these secret bases in Area 51 is to keep the government secret, so our enemies don't find out what we're doing.
Okay,
You know?
but the government
as
wants
far
to the government wants to take the area that you're talking about and hide the fact that there was abductions of people that were there, that were lifted off the planet, and there were some people that hid away and escaped Arizona. So that whole event there, you would think that the government is hiding that from us. The best way to hide it from us is to shut it down like they did at Area 51 and other bases. Why don't they shut it down? I can go there tomorrow, obviously.
In a way, they did.
They did.
Okay, they made South Mountain a government park, and so anything there belongs to the government. You're not supposed to go off the trails. You're not supposed to do anything like that. You know, I found a tomb, but I can't dig it up because I dig it up and find some stuff. I go to prison for many years, and I got a huge fine. This is a government park. And so it's run by the government. It's right in the heart of Phoenix. They can't keep people away from it. If you do that, then more people will say, well, why are you doing that? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So they just made it a government park, and they buried the information in folders, away from people. Like I said before, nobody knew about this, for the last 80 years. The archaeologist, he's under, I'm sure, the government's control, and
Yeah.
he's not going to come forward and say, yeah, there's tombs out there. But look, dude, the photographs are in my book. I take people out to these tombs. I verify it. I show them, look, do you think that there's something buried here? And everybody I've taken out there say, yeah, they're convinced there's something buried there. So if we can discover this, the archaeologist has, and they're not talking about it. Matter of fact, there's Roman numerals on that tomb. There's a circle that can be seen from Google Earth painted on top of it. There's a survey marker on top right where the circle is. I mean, yeah, the government knows what's going on, what's there, but they don't want to dig it up. They don't want to tell people that what's really here,
Yeah.
So
Wow.
that's why I'm hoping that my information, my book, my tours, all the information that I'm bringing to the public now, it's not for my own gain. It's for other people who go out there and investigate it. So hopefully, eventually, there'll be enough pressure for the city of Phoenix to at least open up one tomb. Let's open up one tomb. I'm not saying go up there and destroy the whole mountain and dig it all up. Let's just examine one tomb. Let's verify, what's here. There is a tomb out there. There's many tombs out there. The archaeologist doesn't even admit that the Spanish conquistadors made it this far. But yet, I found evidence that the Spanish did arrive here in Phoenix. It's in my book. We found some things there. You can read the book and find out exactly what I don't want to give it away, but you can find out the stuff that the Spanish left behind 400 years ago when the archaeologists won't admit that the Spanish came through here. Charles Holbrook, there's an inscription up here, the Denazia Stone, okay, on the east side of South Mountain. The government was going to knock that down, because that's one of the Spanish conquistadors. I forget what he was. General or somebody like that. He was an explorer. That's what he was, a Spanish explorer. And his name's carved up on South Mountain, and the city of Phoenix was going to tear it down. And Holbrook said, no, dude, you ain't touching it. He pulled guns on all the construction workers back there in the 1930s. He said, dude, this is Arizona's birthmark. You're not touching this.
Right.
And so there was a big meeting in the city of Phoenix, and now the end result was they put bars. They put bars over that carving, and to this day, that carving sits there with the bars over it because of Holbrook, because of his determination that to keep history alive, that the Spanish was here, and so many other history things that were here in the valley that's not talked about anymore.
Yeah, wow. Fascinating discussion with you. So it'll be great to go out with you. So make sure we hook up after the show here. And I better get off the air now before my wife digs a tomb, and then you'll have to dig up my tomb eventually and see what happened to Dave via the autopsy. So let me get out of here for tonight. It was great having you on the show, and our audience is going to be hooked up to my investigations with you when I go out with you and explore the unknown, because I don't know anything about this. And I want to learn more about it by being next to you and going out there with a camera and seeing what we see. Okay?
Sure.
It's gonna be
Awesome.
great.
Yeah. Check me out. Make sure you follow me on Facebook. Check out my website.
What is
it's
it?
really neat.
Yeah, give out your
to check out the book.
website.
Because when you read the book and then you go out there and see the petroglyphs, it all makes sense.
Great.
So you read the book and you go see the glyphs, you understand what the book is talking about.
Okay, and what is the website? Give that out because people want to check it out after the show here.
Well, it's really long. It's Petroglyphs in the Sky. You can find the link on my Facebook page, right there where the internet links are on the Facebook page. And it's Petroglyphs in the Sky. Jeff Woolwine is the Facebook page. And so, yeah, there you can find the book on eBay, Barnes & Noble. You can get it on ebooks, things like that. So there's a lot of information in it. This is the first book. This goes into the lost history of Phoenix. This explains on how to understand the petroglyphs. It goes into what happened to the Hohokam. And it's a movie type story. that it's an adventure. You know, it's not just a UFO sighting; it's an adventure, dude.
Yeah.
And so it's meant to bring the public. If you can't get to the mountain on your own, then I bring the mountain to you with all the colored photographs and the explanations and the stories, myths, legends, and true stories that go along with South Mountain and the true history of Phoenix.
Yeah. What do people think when you tell them these stories? Like, if you have a girlfriend or a wife, what does she think about all this stuff? Well, what do
Well, you know, after, you know, once they, because anybody that hangs around me long enough, they'll see these things in the sky. I've been seeing these things in the sky since I was a kid. I was born and raised here in Phoenix, and I remember seeing orbs and lights when I was a boy, you know, and I really didn't start filming them and watching them back until, you know, after my encounter in New York, and after, you know, I started watching them in 2004, and that's when it all really started to really kick in. You know, I'm 48 years old now, you know, so I'm a little late, but I'm getting the information out now, and so these things have basically been following me around all my life.
Well,
you know,
you
and when
said-
someone stays with me long enough, they start seeing them too. It doesn't take them very long, you know, to start saying, "Whoa, dude, what is that thing right there in the sky?"
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you mentioned at a young kid you started seeing this stuff. So you're a young kid, you were with your parents. What did your parents say when you saw something and they saw it with you? What was their explanation of what you and them saw? What did they tell you?
You know, that's kind of touchy. I was brought up as Jehovah's Witness, and so things like that really wasn't talked about. And when I was 12, my mother passed away of a brain tumor, and then shortly after that, my dad gave me up to an orphanage, and so I've been basically on my own ever since I was 12. And so that's basically, you know, up until that time, that's when I really started seeing these things in the sky. Now, my mother was into the Indians, and she knew that there was petroglyphs on the mountains around the valley here. You know, she didn't know what they all meant, but she knew that there was some kind of history here.
Yeah.
And it's funny, too, because I remember seeing a light out here, and where we live now, we live like on 61st Avenue in Olive. Now, I used to live 64th Avenue, just right up the road here when I was a kid, and seeing the lights and seeing the orbs. And I'm here again. I've almost made a complete circle in my life here on where I started off at, you know, where my mom passed away at a few blocks away, and I'm still seeing the lights here. I'm still seeing the things in the sky here, you know. So it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed since I was a kid. I'm in the exact same area. And I'm seeing them now in the sky also again. And there's a school, a grade school right up the road here that I went to school with. And I was talking to one of my kids, one of my friends, and he was a Native American. And I was like, "Did you see that light last night? You know, it was like it was in the sky, dude." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "My grandfather," he points to the White King Mountains, the west side. He says, "My grandfather says they lived in the mountains."
Wow.
And I was like, "Wow, dude." You know, I was just a kid. I didn't put two and two together yet. I wasn't into all this yet. But that's what he told me when I was a kid. And his grandfather said, "Yeah, dude, they live in the mountains over there." And he pointed to the White Tanks.
Wow, interesting story. Well, let me get out of here, Jeff. It was great. And I'll hook up with you after the show here, and then we'll try to figure out a date when I come out and I can witness this adventure together with you, okay?
Sounds great, brother. Sounds great. Thanks for having me.
No, actually, thanks for coming on the show. I'll talk to you later on.
Okay, sounds good.
Later on. Bye-bye. Okay, guys, that's it for now. I'm going to sign off. You can't see me because I have a different application running tonight, but thanks for joining the show. And I will be hooking up with Jeff, and we will see what we can bring you guys live, okay? That's it for tonight, guys. Thanks for joining the show. Have a great Memorial Day tomorrow.
May I speak? You have my permission.
Try to ascertain if that information is a potential threat to national security.
Well, I never knew I had Martians in my garden. And I never knew there were aliens on my roof.
May I have your attention?
I got shadow people, and they're living in my basement. Got a funny feeling.
We're all locked in now.
I was so blind before, I was so unaware. But now I swear I'm seeing seeing Sasquatch over there.
I can't take back the fact that your dad is an actual monkey. I don't understand.
Do you believe that life from somewhere else came here, visited, observed?
My personal belief is that there is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone, whatever that means.